morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity on the River this morning. Our opening song today is Broken Vessels and Amazing Grace to ease into our transition series. And this will feature the choir. This is Broken Vessels. All these pieces, broken and scattered, in mercy gathered, mended and whole, empty-handed, but not forsaken, I've been set free, I've been set free. Raising up the broken to life. In human failure or in our weakness, there still is treasure in jars of clay. So take this heart, oh, I'll be the vessel the world will see, Spirit in me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saves someone like me. Was lost, oh, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see, and I can see you now. I can see the love in your eyes, laying Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks so much. We have Yuri on the drums today, Keith on guitar, Mikey on the bass. Thanks so much. Thank you.
It's time. Time for the dead and gone. It's time for the broken ones to live again. It's time. It's time for the dead to rise. It's time for the wings to fly, to live again. I can hear the calling. I can hear the sound of rain. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling, and it's time. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling, and it's time. It's time for the dead to sing. It's time for the walls to ring with songs of freedom. It's time for the numb to feel. It's time for the wounds to heal with songs of freedom. Oh, I can hear the calling. I can hear the sound of rain. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling. It's time. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling. It's time. It's time. It's time for the tide to turn. It's time for our hearts to burn with a desperation. It's time for a sacrifice. It's time that we paid the price for our generation. Oh, I can hear the calling. I can hear the sound of rain. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling. It's time. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling. And it's time. Take a key. Let me just hear you sing. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling. It's time. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling. It's time. Come on. Over the mountains, over the valleys, I hear the calling. It's
That's it. Woo! Brian Knows is rocking it. This is how we do it every week. If you are comfortable standing and have the hand of the person next to you, this is surely the presence.
Let us pray. Surely the presence of the Lord is here because you are here, each and every one of you, in the magnificent embodiment of the divine that you are. At the end of every service, we say the prayer protection which ends, wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Wherever we are, God is. Not because we go and find God there, but because we bring the presence of God with us wherever we are, because it is us. Together we come together today and every Sunday to remember that, to celebrate that. And my prayer is that you remember that every day as well. Wherever you are, God is, because the fullness of God is present as you. It is you. And we are so grateful. And so it is, and so let it be. Amen and amen. Good morning. Good morning. You may be seated. That opening prayer almost turned into a sermon just now. Whoa. Gotta pace myself. It's a long hour. Gotta pace myself. Welcome to Unity on the River. If we have not met before, I am Reverend Ogun Holder, Senior Minister here. So thrilled to be in your presence and feed off of your presence today. As I like to say, if we do indeed always want to see the face of God, we simply look to the face of another, because God is fully present in each and every one of you. To turn to someone, say, God looks good today. And in case you haven't done it yet, when you get home today, go to a mirror, look in the mirror and say, God looks good today too. In fact, just start every day like that. If you haven't, it's a great habit. You know, you roll out of bed, got the bed here, some drool, you got the little things in the corner of your eyes, haven't put the makeup on yet. Just look in the mirror and go, God looks good today. Indeed. God looks good today in the visage of my facilitator today, Amy Jocelyn. Give it up for Amy.
Good morning, everyone. I am Amy Jocelyn, and I have the joy of facilitating the service for Reverend Ogun today. Welcome. First thing we want to do is give a shout out of love and appreciation to our streamers. Welcome, streamers. We appreciate you. And we'd also like to welcome and acknowledge anyone who is spending time for service with us this morning for the first time. If you are new here, if you could raise your hand. The reason we're asking you to raise your hand is we'd like to gift you with a flower. Welcome. We'd also like to give you a welcome packet. Thank you so much. Your presence here really does enrich our experience, and we do welcome all paths to God. The welcome packet that we've given you, if you fill that out and bring it to our Spiritual Resource Center, they can answer any questions that you might have about Unity. And the flower will give you a one-time 10% discount off in our bookstore. So, now, Unity on the River is a center of inspiration, transformation, spirit-centeredness, oneness, and joy. Please hold those, our core values, in your heart as we joyously proclaim our mission and vision statements. Our mission statement: we are a vibrant spiritual community that celebrates the presence in all and awakens humanity to its divinity. And our vision statement: centered in love, we joyously co-create a world of oneness, peace, and harmony. Woo-hoo! That's who we are, and that's what we're doing. All right? So we have a few brief announcements. We have 2 Unity classes starting today. We have Finding Yourself in Transition with me. That's going to be held in the prayer chapel at 1. We also have Unity Basics happening today with Rev Ogun Holder. That is a requirement if you want to become a member here. It is one of the classes that you need to take, and that is being held in the wing room. We also have a Healers Open House today with lots of awesome healing sessions happening. There is a schedule out at our Spiritual Resource Center, and you can they see you also, Christina? All right, excellent. We also have, we have just a happening place here. We also have a Compassion Communication Integration Group with Gina Janest, which is happening at 12 p.m. That's also happening in the prayer chapel. And now is the time in our service that we like to greet each other by saying Namaste. The divine I am sees and appreciates the divine that you are. And please ask if a handshake or hug feels comfortable. Namaste.
So happy to welcome back Brian Dozer, who is our guest artist and soundman today. And he's doing one of my all-time favorite songs, which is Holy Now.
Freebird. Oh.
And I like Freebird, too.
I said I wasn't going to do any more humor, too.
Don't be funny. Stop being funny.
Stairway to heaven.
Just a quick note. This is a song by Peter Mayer. I wish I had written it. I feel like I wrote it. I grew up Catholic. And it says a lot. I know it resonates with a lot of people. But if you have a chance to see Peter Mayer, he's the one who wrote it. When I was a boy each week, Sundays we would go to church, pay attention to the priest, and he would read the holy word and consecrate the holy bread. Everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. When I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two. Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad that miracles don't happen still. Now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything's a miracle. Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is anything is here at all. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, finding where there isn't one. When holy water was rare at best, barely wet my fingertips. Now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. Used to be a world half there, heaven second rate, hand me down. But now I walk with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Child's face, say it's not a testament, that'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come, say it's not a sacrament, I'll tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, saw a little red-winged bird shining like the burning bush, singing like a scripture verse. Made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then, 'cause everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven second rate, hand me down. But now I walk with a reverent air, everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. One more time. Everything is holy now.
You'll hear more from Brian shortly. So I need to start today with a little bit of sad
news. Many of you, pretty much all of you, know our operations director, Peter Stringham. His mother-in-law passed away yesterday morning. She'd been making her transition for a few months now, and she finally let go yesterday morning. So if you're wondering where Peter is today, if you usually have to see him for some reason, he's with his family, and he is a relentlessly loyal person to this community. Because I said to him, please don't even think about coming in and take the day off. And he's like, well, we're live streaming, and I think I might need to come set in the camera, so I'll come do that and then go back home. I said, no. We'll figure it out. Stay with your family. And for them and his wife Carol, a lot of you know Carol as well, this is like a kind of a bit of a double whammy. They were very close, as some of us are, with Lisa Gallant, who passed away the week before. So it's kind of like piling on a little bit, if you will, and it's a funny thing, this grief thing. It's a funny thing. This time of year is also particularly difficult for me. We're approaching Joy and I, the third anniversary of my wife Jennifer passing away. I like to call it the death-iversary, because just the third anniversary of my wife passing away is a lot of words. So you know my life motto: less is more. Just call it the death-iversary. So my emotions tend to be all over the place at this time of year, which might explain why at 7 a.m. yesterday, while watching the royal wedding, I was blubbering like a baby. First of all, weddings. I mean, they're emotional things. I get all teary at weddings all the time. But as I was watching the wedding yesterday, it wasn't like what I like to call the one tear cry. It wasn't the one teardrop cry. It was a full-on ugly face snot cry. Yesterday. I'd been looking for some of you. How many watched the wedding? Come on, fess up. There we go. How many of you may have attended like a royal wedding party get-together thing? Some of you might have? Okay. I had been looking for one to go to, because these things are always more fun to watch with other people. And I wasn't able to find one. And given how I responded yesterday, it was probably a good thing, because people might have been like, what's going on with that dude? But as I'm sitting there and I'm watching these two boys, these two men, who as boys, lost their mother. And I'm remembering when that happened. I was 7 years old when Princess Diana was married, and I vividly remember that, growing up in Barbados, we have that weird, paradoxical obsession with England, the colonial power that kept us under their thumb for centuries. We're still really fascinated by what goes on. It's this weird relationship. But I remember that, and of course, I'm projecting forward and seeing my own daughter someday getting married and her mom not there, and it's just like all over the place. Okay, so there's that. Plus, I'm also packing up my house. As some of you may have seen, I'm getting ready to move down into the Boston area in Newton. My girlfriend and I are moving in, and yes, I'm bringing Joy too. She's got to come too. Still a minor, one more year. So that's happening as well. And while that is a joyous thing in and of itself, every time I moving is a grief trigger for me. And I do a lot of it. I did the math. I've moved 6 times in the last 5 years. And some of them have been, interstate moves. Some of them have been from one house to another, but that's a lot of moving and a lot of packing, and granted, it's a good excuse to do a lot of purging every time, but it's still a grief trigger. It's a grief trigger. It's a stepping into a change while I'm still processing a much bigger change. And this is kind of how it goes. And believing there are no accidents in this universe, it's perfect that we're looking at this book, Finding Yourself in Transition. It's a modern unity classic. Reverend Robert Brummett wrote this in the mid-90s. And this book, if there's any unity book that I pick up, pardon the pun, religiously every couple years, it's this one, and more so now than ever. Change is a thing that is ever present. Like death and taxes, we can't avoid change. And yet, we struggle with it. We struggle with change. And part of the reason we struggle with change is because every change means loss. Every loss means grief. And we don't like grief. We really don't like it. Grief, I mean, if there's any process, any emotional, mental, physiological process we go through, I think the one that we might struggle with most is grief. I'll speak for myself, because it's unpredictable. It has no timeline. You don't honestly know when it's going to begin. It might precede the event. It may go on for weeks, months, years, lifetimes. Your emotions are all over the place. Things that should be joyous events, like royal weddings, suddenly become this thing that triggers an emotional meltdown. Grief has you all over the place. And no matter how small a change or how big a change is happening in your life, there is loss, and therefore there will be grief on some stage. And as human beings, we tend to want to resist that. We tend to want to not, and culture enforces it. Our culture enforces it. Our culture is like, so sorry for your loss. When you getting back to work? Right? Our culture reinforces that. I started with the example of Peter, bless his heart. He was ready to roll back and here it is. Like, no, stay home. Stay home. We'll figure it out. We praying every morning at 9, and I said to the folks, the folks who come in early, who are volunteering and working, I said, well, Peter's not here today, so if you need to see him for anything that you normally would, as long as I'm not up here, you can come whisper in my ear, we'll figure something out. And if I'm up here, you're on your own, figure it out. Just don't burn the place down, and we're going to be okay. But our culture wants us to speed through this thing, because not only is it uncomfortable for the people who are grieving, but it's also uncomfortable for the people around them. We don't know what to do. There's a sense of helplessness. What should I say? What should I do? And then because we all grieve differently, it's different for every person. So what may have worked for us to support a grieving person in one aspect is not going to work for another person. So everyone's kind of feeling a little like, oh, we don't know what to do. And there's this discomfort. And if there's anything human beings are really good at, is of trying to avoid discomfort. Like, we're really, really good at it. But we're missing out on a golden opportunity for spiritual awakening when we do that. And this is what this book is all about. So the next few weeks, I'm going to be talking about finding ourselves in transition. Amy's going to be teaching the class. We have books in the bookstore. I'm going to invite you guys to not just follow along with the talks and read the books, but get yourself in the class too. Why? Because we all experience change. We all experience loss because of change. And whether we want to admit it or not, or understand it or not, or realize it or not, we're going through grief as well. There's a great saying in the book I found: to live is to grow is to change is to die to the old. To change is to die to the old. And if we're dying to something, there's going to be grief. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through, the symptoms and the levels and the stages of grief. Any good Google search will give you all that. But how do we take that and turn into a spiritual process for awakening. And the thing we have to realize is that it's a paradox. It's a paradox. This thing that evokes sadness, anger, confusion, all that kind of stuff is really a thing that is opening us up to a deeper understanding of ourselves, and therefore a deeper understanding of God. If we are the full embodiment, if we are the fullness of the divine, the fullness of God, fully present at the point of us, and we want to understand God, we got to deeply understand ourselves, especially our spiritual selves, beyond the intellect, beyond the emotions, the history, the psychology, the physiology. All of that matters too. But to know our spiritual selves at the deepest level, this is how we get to know God. And this is what this process of grief can do for us. So how does this process, how does transition begin? Transition begins with an ending. My favorite quote with that is, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. If you're up on your 90s rock music, you know that's quote from Closing Time by Semisonic. Talk about one-hit wonders. But they didn't come up with that quote. Like every good quote, somebody else came up with it. This dates, all the way back, hundreds and hundreds of years to the Roman philosopher Seneca. He was the first one who said this. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. And endings, again, all over the place. We might instigate the ending. We might be in a situation, a job, a relationship or something, and we get clear that we need to end it. And even before it actually ends, we get clear on the inside. And sometimes we struggle with it before we actually make it happen on the outside. So the ending's already begun within us. But sometimes the ending happens without any say on our part. You get called into your boss's office. We're downsizing. You're laid off. Thanks for it. A partner walks in and says, we had a good run, but I'm out. Or something. Sometimes we begin the endings. Sometimes the endings begin all on their own. And when that happens, again, knowing what we know about endings, or what you're going to know about this process of change and transition, we can either freak out or we can go, it's an ending. You know what that means? I'm in transition. And you know what that means? This is an opportunity for spiritual awakening. Now, you'll probably do it with less enthusiasm. That was a prepared moment. But when you're on your spiritual journey, and you go and do a lot of studying and listen to speakers and reading books and all that stuff, and you're meditating, you're getting all this knowledge, it's really useless unless you remember to apply it in the moments. Hence our fifth principle there. So when these moments arise, like transition, whether you instigated it or it instigated you, when those moments arise, again, you're going to get the feelings. You're going to get the anger, the shock, all of that. You're going to get your feelings. But use these feelings not as an opportunity to rail against the world, rail against the person who you believe hurt you, rail against all that's going on. Rather, say to yourself, I feel all this stuff. Guess what? This is an opportunity for spiritual awakening because I am stepping into transition, stepping into change. And that's a good thing when we look at it. But the first part about endings that we need to realize is, even if we know we're stepping into an awakening, we don't need to gloss over the ending. One of the things Brahman says in the book, Robert Brahman, that I like, he says, honor the ending, but don't worship it. Honor the ending, but don't worship it. When we worship it, we run the risk of getting stuck in it. And when I say worship, what I mean is we elevate it above everything else. We elevate it above everything else. Every thought, every action, every word, everything we do revolves around that thing. And 10 years, 20 years later, we're still telling the story of how that person left us and how we feel about it. And we're bringing that into every relationship and making every relationship sour. And then wondering, what's wrong with the people out there? And then what's wrong with me? And then realize we still haven't stopped worshiping, putting above everything else, that first thing. So we honor it. How do we honor a loss? How do we honor something like that? First of all, we go to gratitude. It may be painful in the moment, but there's something about that experience that allowed you to discover a little bit more of yourself. There's something with the time with the person or the job or whatever it is that allowed you to discover a little bit more about yourself. You've learned about yourself. Even if all you've learned is, this is what I do not like, at least you've learned that. And you won't probably choose that again. And by the way, if you do, then you'll probably have to choose it again and again and again until you realize, I really don't like this, I'm going to stop choosing this. You still get to make that choice. But be in that gratitude place first about it. The other thing you can do when that happens, not only just being gratitude for it happening in terms of the realizations you learned about yourself, but be in gratitude for them too. Because when we're in gratitude, this is like the basic lesson of abundance consciousness. When we're in gratitude, we see what we have and what we gained, not what we lost and what we don't have. We see the things that are glorious about us, not the things that we imagine that might be wrong about us, which is why this person disappeared, or why he got fired, or why he got rejected. Because when those things happen, we can run the script of, here's what's wrong with me. They finally discovered the flaws, and therefore they've gotten rid of me. Or when we in gratitude and we can acknowledge the gloriousness of ourselves, what do we say? Their loss, and we move on. Honor the loss, but don't worship it. We can see grief and loss as a rite of passage to step into the next phase of who we are. In our society today, in this modern day and time, we don't have a lot of rites of passage. We don't. If there's one thing I really admire the Jewish community is, bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs. There's a certain celebrating, a rite of passage that acknowledges transition. We don't have a lot of those anymore. And the reason, I don't know why we don't have them, but because we don't have them, we don't really get prepared for changes. They sneak upon us. I wish there was a rite of passage when I turned from 39 to 40. Right? Something happened. And I kid you not, but like the week of me hitting 40, all of a sudden I realized my metabolism does not work like it used to. Does not work like it used to. And all of a sudden, that like hour and a half at the gym, it like had no effect. I had to bump it up. Where before, 30 minutes, I'm ripped. Before now it's like no effect. Now it's like if I skip the gym for a week or so, before 40, made no tangible difference. Now after 40, it's like I turn into a slob. I mean, it's bizarre. I've had this weird rib displacement from my spine. My chiropractor's been working on it. For some reason, my two top ribs got a little displaced from the sign. It was achy. I couldn't go work out for like 4 weeks, and I've just been like I'm losing my definition. This is like suddenly like popping out again. Only 4 weeks. Like when I was in my 20s, I didn't work out for 4 weeks. I lost weight. Now so So if there was, I wouldn't have been in such shock if there was like a nice transition rite of passage ceremony where other older, wiser men sat me down and said, let me tell you what's going to happen. And we will still love you for it. That would have been helpful. Okay, that would have been helpful. But we go through these changes in our lives and we don't have any rites of passage. But you can look at grief as a rite of passage. A rite of passage. Because we start with endings, and then I'll talk about this over the next few weeks. We go through a void period. And then after the void, there's a new beginning. Remember that line, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. So if we see it as a rite of passage, what we really know is that when we come out on the other side of it, we're going to be better. We're going to be stronger, emotionally stronger, mentally stronger, spiritually stronger. But if we go in thinking that this is just a bottomless pit, we're not going to fare as well. We're not going to fare as well. So how do you know you're in an ending? There are a couple of aspects of endings that you can maybe recognize. And these are not in any chronological order. These just happen any way, shape, or form. The first one is disengagement. So disengagement is, again, this can happen, usually happens externally. You're extricating yourself. It might be from a job you had, from a relationship. You have to, you move into a new part, and you got to pack the house up. You got to do all of that. I am busy disengaging from my house right now, and I am just not loving it. But this is what happens. By the way, if anybody has a truck and want to help me move a piano, that would really be helpful. Or if you want a piano, it's a free piano. It was given to me. I don't mind moving it, passing it on. So if you want a piano. And a really nice Sleep Number mattress. I got one of those. I got a list of stuff. If you want to help me extricate, disengage from my house, that would be helpful. Talk to me after service. But the thing about disengagement that we don't like so much is because it challenges our belief about our place in the world. It challenges our belief about our place in the world. Think about relationships when we have to disengage. Well, I thought I meant this to someone. Now I don't. What do I mean to other people? When we are disengaged from a job, well, I thought I meant this much to my company or my place. Apparently I don't. What does it say about me? So we start to question, and it challenges our belief about who we think we are in the world. Then there's disidentification. Now this is kind of like disengagement, but now it's internal. Who am I? Who am I without this job? Who am I without this relationship? Who am I without this spiritual community? Who am I without? Who am I without? Because so many times, whether we do it consciously or not, we define ourselves by our roles, right? I am father, I am mother, I'm singer, I'm artist. We define ourselves by our roles. Who are we without them? Who are we without them? If you were an artist who painted beautiful things and you were in some horrific accident and lost use of your hands, who are you if you're not able to create the way you've always created? Who am I? This is what disidentification does. It challenges who we believe about ourselves. Then we have disenchantment, the realization that what we thought was real isn't real. The realization that what we thought we needed in our life or wanted to survive, it's suddenly gone. And we're like, well, what does that mean about my life? Or we realize that the thing's gone and the planet hasn't stopped spinning on its axis. I still wake up every morning. I'm still living. Wait, I didn't need that thing to begin with, but it was such a central part of my life. And now what? Disenchantment. And then there's also disorientation. And this happens when our old way of being, thinking, living becomes dismantled and we're not sure what's happening next. We may have had this plan for our life, or we were clear about where direction was, and this thing happened, and all of a sudden it's like we're like on this alternate timeline. Remember Back to the Future? Y'all saw the movie Back to the Future? And how they just had to keep going back in the past to fix things so that the future wouldn't turn into this like scary alternate timeline nobody knew about. But that's what happens when we have these big transitions in our life, especially the ones that we didn't plan. We think this is going to happen. And that's part of the grief process too. We also got to learn how to deal with the loss of what we thought was going to happen. And the fun thing about our brain is that it doesn't know the difference between what's actually happened and what we've imagined is happening. Brain does not know the difference. So then there's this confusion. Where am I? Where am I going? What's happening? So all of these 4 aspects, and again, not in any particular order, come up for us when we step into an ending of some sort. And again, it doesn't matter how big or how small it is. Anytime there's change, there's loss. Every time there's loss, there's grief. Anytime there's loss and change, an ending has happened. And we're going to feel all of these on some level. So I won't leave you in despair. Because it's like, oh, dude is bumming us out this morning. What is happening? What? I'm not going to leave you in despair. Well, I might. I don't know. Again, remember what this means. Remember what an ending means. An ending means that a new beginning is coming your way. An ending may feel like you've walked into a dark tunnel. But remember that light at the end of the tunnel, it's not a train coming. It's the new beginning. And you've got to walk through it. You can't shortcut it. That does not end well. And you can't resist it, because if you try to resist it, you're going to do yourself lots of damage, and then you won't get to that point. You're going to get stuck in it. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. And we love new beginnings, don't we? We love the excitement. We love the rush. We love the feeling of, yeah, here I am now. So hold on to the thought of that. Hold on to the thought of that. Knowing that that's your reward. That's your reward for when you find yourself in transition. Get the book. Go to the class. Really dig into this material. Because this, when we talk about spiritual practice, the ability to recognize our opportunity for awakening in every moment that might seem less than joyful, that, my friends, is the ultimate spiritual practice. That is making your God self shine, be visible, bring hope to others, transform yourself and the world. And rather than get stuck in the mud of sadness, it's the opportunity to break out and soar. So come back next week, in case I bummed you out today. Well, next week is the void, so it might be bummed out again next week, too. Come back next week as we walk through that train tunnel and come out at the other end. Come out the other end. Trust me, folks, it'll get better at the end. Get better. Let's take this into meditation for a little bit. So I invite us to take a deep breath. And become fully present to what we are feeling right now. Perhaps during the course of this talk, you remembered a loss or were triggered by grief. Perhaps you remembered an unforgiveness that might still be out there, a pain that has not yet been resolved. Whatever you're feeling right now, I invite you not to resist it, but simply breathe with it. Breathe with it and let it open you up. Let it open you up so that you might discover the deepest self that you are. We are here to be the embodiment of the divine. It is who we are called to be. And everything that awakens in our life is the opportunity to discover more of that part of who we are and bring it to the world. Change is our opportunity for spiritual awakening. So as we spend a few moments in the silence, I invite you to affirm, I awaken through change. I awaken through change. Doesn't matter if it's good change, bad change, however we choose to label it. And remember, we are choosing to label it. I awaken through change. Let's take that affirmation into the silence for a few moments. I awaken through change. I awaken through change. Let this be our grounding affirmation as we go forth and embrace every change, every transition, every moment of loss in our life. And let us hold that intention for all the names in our prayer box, knowing that in every challenge that's contained here, we hold the affirmation for these souls that they too will awaken through the changes. And should you hold that intention for anyone else in your life, I invite you to say their names out loud now. I awaken through change. Transitions are not challenges, they are opportunities to awaken. So it is.
In the stillness of this moment, there is peace, there is peace. In the stillness of this moment, there is peace, there is peace. And I rest and trust and breathe and know. In the stillness of this moment, there is peace. In the stillness of this moment, there is love, there is love. In the stillness of this moment, there is love, there is love. And I rest and trust and breathe and know. In the stillness of this moment, there is peace. In the stillness of this moment, there is love, there is love. In the stillness of this moment, there is love, there is love. And I rest and trust and breathe and know. In the stillness of this moment, there is love.
And that is the truth. Thank you, Ogun, for an awesome service and for bringing attention to the book, and to the classes. One thing that I will say is both thank you and I'm sorry, because you've definitely been there to support me through my transition, but it is a great class and it has a lot of great tools in it. At this time, we'd just like to ask our beloved chaplains to please rise if they are able. These beautiful souls are here to help you and affirm the highest and best for you. If you're having a transition, if you have a joy or a gratitude, they'd love to hold that for you. We also have a home and hospitality prayer service, chaplain team available. Is Catherine or Nancy, any of that team? You can see them if you have someone that's in the hospital or home recuperating that would like someone to come visit with them. They are also available. Also, just want to bring some recognition to the fact that we do have a prayer chest in the back. If you can leave prayer requests in there, you can submit prayers over our website, and we also have a dedicated phone line for that as well. All right, and now this is just a time in the service that we like to get our bless our tithes and our offerings. So get those together, and we say, divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive.
I got everything that I need to be happy. I got food, I got friends, I got my community, yeah, yeah. I got the birds in the morning and the sweet blue sky. Got my heart beating songs and singing my, oh my. I got everything
Well, if I got my boots and I got a roof, I must have prosperity. If the birds in the morning and the sky, I got my heart beating songs to sing. Oh my, I got everything that I need to be happy. I got nothing if I don't have myself. And if I'm not grateful for all God's graces, what good is money? What good is wealth? I got everything that I need to be happy. Take it away, Keith. I got everything that I need to be happy. Oh, I got everything that I need to be happy. Well, I got love, and I got laughter, and I got what's left of my sanity. And I got Mara on piano and Ogun in my ear. I got all the sweet belonging that comes from being here with all my beautiful community, all you lovely, beautiful, wonderful people, and all the streamers out there. Hello! I got everything that I need. Everything that I need. I got everything that I need to be happy. Thank you, Ray. Give it
Let's go ahead and bless and give thanks for these offerings. So for all of you who gave here today, for all those of you who donated online, who are watching our live stream, for all those who are automatically tithing straight from our bank account, we give thanks for all the inflow that we bless, and we bless to increase. And in true spiritual practice fashion, we tithe a portion of these back to our local community, the unity movement, and continue that flow. And so it is, and we're grateful. Amen and amen. Thank you. Appreciate it. Couple other quick notices. We will be having a memorial service for Lisa Gallant here. It's going to be this Saturday at 11 a.m. So if you can make it, that would be great. We're some friends and family going to be sharing. I think the plan is to plant a tree in the garden in her name. If that doesn't happen this Saturday, it will happen. And then we're going to have some food and fellowship and the opportunity to, share our Lisa stories as community and friends and family together. And also next Sunday after church, Peter, and I think more is involved in this too, have this amazing idea to have a cabaret sometime later in the year. So if you're interested in Friday, July 13th. So if you're interested in helping to make that happen, and when I say cabaret, I'm not talking like lights up on stage. I'm talking over there, nice and cozy. Think French Parisian sidewalk cafe. No cigarettes though. I know, but wear your berets if you want. I won't judge you on the beret thing. So if you're interested in helping to make that happen, next Sunday after church, meet in Peter's office. And I believe Amy has some more thank yous and gratitudes for us.
Hi. It really does take a village to co-create the service that we have here on Sundays. So just want to thank everyone that's part of that experience. We do have some special angels that we'd like to send some extra love to. Those angels are Mark, Edith, John, Marie, and everyone who brought items to recirculate for last Saturday's Recirculation Day event in our spring fling. And the teams that we'd like to recognize are our Meditation Garden team, our PowerPoint team, yay! Our Spring Fling team, and the bookstore team. And we'd also like to thank our board members who are our awesome volunteers as well. If they could rise. Thank you. Thank you, board members. We also want to thank everyone that's involved in making our Wednesday night services happening. This week it will be Leslie Smith. So we're very excited that Leslie Smith will be in the house. Yes. Always a great, mindful, intentional event when Leslie's in the house. Also, we do have some other events happening on Wednesdays as well. We'll have our Curton Swan on May the 30th, and Amand and Angelina will be here on June 6th. So it'll be a little bit of a really deep experience for that. And I'd also like to introduce our big song. Brian, are you ready to raise some voices? Lift them.
We're going to raise our voice.
Yeah.
Raise your voice in
let's remain standing. I don't think our kids are coming in, or are they? Are they? They are? I was told they're not, but they are coming. All right, then we're walking. Anybody needs to say anything? So let us, well, stay standing, stay standing, stay standing. We will just hold that energy of love and light for these kids. Send a special heartfelt blessing, Becky. Becky, are one of our YFM co-coordinators, and my daughter Joy. They're at the Unitine retreat somewhere in Pennsylvania. So send them some love, and let us hold the intention that indeed peace begins with us. Peace begins with these kids, and all is well. Let there be peace on earth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anybody saying prayer protection with me? You wanna? No? She's like, she's gonna even. We say the prayer protection at the end with some of the kids. You wanna join us?
I've never done it.
Okay, it don't matter. Come on. Hi. Hello.
With me, let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous smile. You take me strong and living song and this
The light of God surrounds us.
We have the light of God.
The love of God enfolds us.
We have the love of God.
The power of God protects us.
We have the power of God.
The presence of God watches over us.
We have the presence of God.
Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.